Hello and welcome to the Drexel interview. I'm your host, Paula Morantz-Cohen, and today our guest is Joan Calabrese, one of America's leading designers of children's couture clothing. We're very glad to have her with us today. Joan Calabrese, welcome to the Drexel interview.
I am very pleased to be here.
You are known for your extraordinary, really spectacular clothing designs for children, and particularly for young girls. And I wonder if you'd tell us a little bit about what got you interested in doing this kind of work, this sort of niche sort of design.
I would say that the niche happened because I was, a long time ago, the mother of 2 little girls, and my taste level at the time far exceeded my purse. And I had great passion for fabric, and I loved to sew. In fact, at the time, I made probably all of my clothes, too. Because, as I said, I loved designer clothing at the time, but I had to make it if I was going to have it, together with the love of fabrication. The niche for the children was nothing that I planned in advance. I have to thank a relative of mine, Tom Murata, who saw the dresses that my children had on. Nothing special, just cute little cotton dresses. At the time, they were special because they were different than anything that was being presented. They were made with European fabric to start with. You didn't find this all those years ago. And Tom said, you've got to do something. These are beautiful dresses. I'd like you to take these to one of my friends who just opened a second store in Philadelphia. And that would have been the Children's Boutique, and the lady was Linda Berman, is Linda Berman. Linda saw the dresses, which I went home and washed and ironed and presented these 2 little dresses that had been worn by my children to Linda, who, in her usual passionate reaction, she just went ballistic over these things, and she ordered 40 of the dresses. My task now is to A, create patterns for all these sizes, B, get the fabric somewhere wholesale, didn't have an idea how to do this, and C, make the dresses. I did all of those things, and in short order. I don't think I was out of her store that they were all sold. These dresses were sold very quickly. Reorder and start the process all over again. So the bottom line is I learned very, very quickly how to get fabric wholesale. But a little chutzpah was required, because when I approached one of the, at the time, a company called Viala, and I approached the representative, who was very busy with somebody else who was coming in, a very well-known name at the time, and said, look, I only have 15 minutes, and you should know that we have a 100-meter minimum on everything that you're going to buy.
What do you mean by 100 meter?
Well, what that means is, well, first of all, the European measurement is a meter, and the goods were out of England, so they were using the European measurement. When you buy fabric from big companies, you cannot just get 10 yards of this and 5 of that and so forth. You have to buy their minimums. Well, I persisted, and I said, look, I'm just starting, and frankly, all I need is 10 yards of that, 15 of that, and 20 of that. Will you give it to me? And he said, yes, I will.
And
so that was the beginning.
Started.
And I will say that was in 1975. In 1980, after my very similar purchases with this gentleman in the beginning, I was invited with others to attend a world event at Goldsmith Hall in London. And what they did was they brought together all of the best designers using their fabric from all over the world. And I was thrilled and flattered to be in the company at the time of Bill Blass, Ralph Lauren, and
was this all children's wear by these designers?
No,
or was it a mix?
Whatever your use of the fabric. So here I was with all of these big names in America, and little me who buys 10 yards of this and 20 yards of that. And later on, I asked this rep, why did you ever do that for me? You could have said, leave. He said, I just felt really good about what you were doing.
Really?
And
so
I thought,
was inspired by your designs.
right.
And I want to look at those now because I have a sampling. There were many, many dresses that blew me away, but I chose a few that seemed to me to be reflective of your imagination and craftsmanship. And I wondered if you'd speak a little bit to them. I mean, these two in particular, and they'll be shown on the screen so people will see them. These two seem to me to have these extraordinary skirts. Could you talk a little bit about what's involved in making these dresses?
Yes. First of all, there is a process called the laser cut, which gives a lot of dimension to a dress or to a piece of fabric. These, besides being cut with a laser, and if you can imagine, anything that's cut also has to be finished on the edges so it won't fray. So in the case of this skirt, you have flowers all over that become three-dimensional by some other process in addition to the laser cut that they do. Now you've got tiny, tiny little beads all over that are hand-done. This fabric is very, very, very laborious. Needless to say, it is not produced in the United States of America.
Okay.
We couldn't possibly afford to do that. But if you want something this distinctive, you A, have to find who's going to do it for you, and then B, you've got to let them know what you want. Essentially, they can provide the labor, and that's
Okay.
what we did. I would say on the green dresses here, the one on the right particularly, it's the same process. It's laser work together with embroidery and beading. Again, very laborious. So when I meet up with the maker of these goods, I take a look at some prototypes basic prototypes that they offer with the various processes. And I then say, okay, I want you to remove that, put this here, do this here, make the flower smaller, give me more beading here, change the color. So I individualize it.
Okay, well here's another one that I think this is obviously very festive for the holiday season. Velvets, I think.
This is an absolutely delicious crushed velvet, which is embroidered all over. And then the skirt here on the right is one that is actually, we call this a lifted skirt. My seamstress actually takes and makes tucks all over the skirt. The fabric is done for us, and this particular one happens to be French. And then we then take and make our design out of the fabrication. But once again, this is about seeing the maker in Europe and seeing a prototype that I might say to him, I love that, but could you please, I'd like this color, I'd like this flower, I'd like the flower to be this, blah, 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 blah,
So
blah.
it's almost like you have a template, and on that you do your embroidery.
Right, so we do individualize it.
This one I also think is quite striking. It's for an older girl. It looks like a teenager. In darker shades. The skirt there is unusual.
Now this skirt is a combination of laser cutting and gathering, and it's basically quite simple. It's just simple taffeta which has been cut, and then we do all the rest of it to create the design. This young lady, we would consider her to be, I guess you would say, a preteen, although I do not like the word preteen. In fact, I don't know where that word came from, but if I were a teenager or a preteen, I wouldn't like that. What we're trying to do here is give the older girl a sophisticated look. She doesn't want to look babyfied, for sure. And these things I think you could do these dresses for an adult woman, and it would be fine.
Yeah.
However,
I love a dress like that.
We have plenty of women. In fact, one of the people that works for me wants one of the dresses for herself, and I said, well, that could be arranged.
Well, I'm just going, I want to ask you other questions, but I'm just going to quickly show these. I love the color combinations here in this one. The beading on the bodice of this little dress, white dress, is extraordinary. And then this adorable little blue dress for a young girl. I have to ask you, though, I mean, these dresses are expensive.
They are.
They start, I think, in the $300, $400 range. They go up into the thousands. Who buys these dresses?
Very wealthy ladies.
I guess my question is, you know, I also have a daughter, and there are a number of questions that this raises, and one is the fact that little girls do grow very quickly. And a dress like this, which is just so beautiful, would last maybe, I don't know, 6 months at most, before the child would outgrow it. Do you see these as heirlooms?
Definitely.
Works that will be passed on?
Definitely. I meet people all the time, if it's a trunk show or whether it's on the street or wherever, friends, and people tell me all the time, we absolutely will not part with these dresses. We keep them. We keep them in the family. Maybe somebody else wants to use them. But the business of buying something for practicality does not really exist in the fashion world, because people buy, let's face it, nobody needs anything. We need nothing. We buy because we have an emotional response to something. And if we can afford to do it, why not? If you cannot afford to do this, that's fine. Then there are things for you that I'm sure are very nice. But if you want this kind of fabrication and this kind of design, obviously it's costly.
Well, let me ask you about that. The difference between a dress like this, and I guess I'll go through some gradations. You sell to, I assume, stores like maybe Neiman Marcus and Saks. I don't know if those are the stores, but those types of stores. And then you have stores like Macy's, and then you have stores like Marshall's and perhaps Kmart. What are the differences for a consumer in terms of buying a child's dress, in terms of these different levels of...
Okay, what is the difference between a Rolls Royce and a beat-up old pickup truck?
I guess it's a pretty obvious question.
You know, you get what you pay for, essentially. That's what it is. First of all, if you're going to a discount store, you're buying stuff that is coming from probably China, and it's very inexpensive because it's made with very inexpensive fabric. It's mass-produced. It's all over the place, and it's a different market entirely. My lady, my customer, is a very sophisticated lady. And incidentally, there are some people who are not necessarily the richest tier, but people who are comfortable, professional women who love what they love, and they're going to have it. If they can do it, they'll do it. And sometimes they trade up. In other words, maybe a lady who is not exactly the wealthiest, but she may say, I'm going to buy that, I want that, and I've got to have that, especially where my little girl is involved, or granddaughter.
Granddaughter, that's key. Yeah.
Very much so.
Yeah.
And I'll do without something else. And maybe I'll go to one of those stores that you mentioned and buy another thing there. But for right now, I want this.
Okay.
They know its value. People want value. They're willing to pay for it. They also want service. The stores that I sell to give great service. They're service-oriented businesses. So you cannot go into a department store like Macy's and find that kind of operation. The salespeople there are not trained to deal with the special order business, which is essentially what this is. So we are in, basically, my strategy for marketing is to be in the best children's store in a good marketing area, to be in the best bridal salon in the marketing area. We will sell.
Because these are flower girl dresses in many cases.
They are. Sometimes flower girls. They are party dresses, bar and bat mitzvah dresses, special occasion, communion.
Right.
We do christenings. We even do cotton dresses, maybe garden party, weddings kind of thing, where it's more casual, or Easter dresses, or whatever. So we have a broad range of looks that we do. However, none of them could be thought of, even for a second, as anything less than a special event dress. This is not what you're going to run around playing in the sandbox in, you know.
Although even at the special event, they can spill the ice cream on the dress.
Why not? They're kids. I think they should have a good time.
I have to ask you this question, though, because I have a daughter. My daughter now is 17. But I would say that at the age of 6, that's when she stopped being willing to wear what I wanted her to wear. And so I look at these dresses and I think that they're